All right, well, welcome everybody. You being here shows me that you're also interested in the progress of our department, so I appreciate everybody showing up. Get our presentation up and going, but I just wanted to take a minute to really thank you. We're going to be getting into a lot of stuff, a lot of work. It's going to be a busy year for us, so looking for a lot of buy-in and a lot of people participating and a lot of potential changes that we're going to get going in on. All right. Yeah. 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 All right, grab it. All right. Okay. So gonna go over, as we know, we got 2025 is a big year. We got goals 1, goal 2. And I'm gonna go through that. I'm gonna give an update. What we're looking for is feedback on what our plan is. We have a few more days because on Friday, I'm gonna be giving Chief Van Camp our final detailed proposal of how we're gonna implement goal 1 and goal 2. So we wanted to get everybody to buy in. We've already had our battalion chiefs give some feedback. I'll talk a little bit about some of the modifications we've made. We've had the officers chime in, give some feedback, and we want to make sure all members have an opportunity to give any feedback and have an opportunity to give any suggestions, because that gives me today, tomorrow, to make any final adjustments that we do before we turn it in on Friday. As a reminder, in the shared drive, we're working real hard to make sure everybody has all the information. I saved a tree and didn't print every single thing, but just know that there's additional, the surveys, the background, the history, the summary of a lot of the different things. They're all here if anybody wants to come through and get them hard copies, but and bog you down with all that. So, but just you know that in the shared drive, everybody's welcome to find anything and everything that we're working on and doing. Give a little summary. Hopefully everybody had seen. If you hadn't, I would encourage you watch. Chief Van Camp and I put together kind of a, here's how we took sort of a global look and then funnel down where the details go. What do commissioners do? What does the chief do? The assistant chief, what all the members, and we're going to take that same concept of funneling down before we get into the weeds. So October 8th, the board had adopted the plan for 2025 for our 5-year plan. And we're going to go more specific in on that. I'll save you all the board and chief detail stuff, and we're going to get into what we're really going to do is at the 5,000 level. So here's the summary. Goal 1 and goal 2, we're going to hit it a little bit more in depth. And basically, it had already said, okay, goal 1, goal 2, part of our strategic plan is adopted, implement. And Chief said, all right, there, Mr. Chief LeMay, sir, go and make this work. And we have decided to make a collaborative effort by involving everybody and getting everybody to feedback, to buy in on the details, to give us feedback. So I'm looking for you to give me whatever kind of ideas, and we're going to go through a lot of details. If it's something I'm about to get to, I might pause and say, hey, let me get there, and then we'll come back and we're gonna have time. I'm going to give a presentation real quick on where we are, and then we'll roll into some discussion about goal 1, and then we'll roll into goal 2, talk about details on that. We'll have some discussion about goal 1 and 2, and if there's any questions, we'll keep it going. So at the 1,000 foot level. Yeah, you got it. So at the 1,000 foot level, this is start getting into. So now we've said we are going to look at hiring more staff. We are looking at changing some procedures, and we start getting into, well, when is it actually going to be that we are making announcements? Well, what are the details in on that? When are we making the announcements? When are we hiring? What's our process for hiring more firefighters? And as well, some of the details on the procedures that we're updating. So we're going to go through all that. Oh. All right, so goal 1. So this is updating our procedures. If anybody didn't know, we've got a lot of policy procedures that are 20 years old. And there's unfortunately a lot of things that we're doing that aren't what our policy procedure says, which is a dangerous place to be. We don't want to be there. And I know all of you responders, you're hungry for more guidance. And this says we do it the old way, but we're really doing it the new way. Can't have that. So that's one of our main missions this year is to update it. So the timeline per the 25 district goals and objectives, the review of the prioritization, February, that's done. If you recall, we did a survey to all responders, got only 7 people replied, but gave us some feedback, and there wasn't too much surprise on what people think the priorities are. Some of the most important things, the standard response guidelines, that was one of the biggest things that everybody was saying, yeah, we definitely need. And if we're looking at new programs, then we need to prioritize all that. So that part is done. And then step 2 of this, we're updating the actual current policies and procedures. So in April, the goal is that, or I'm going to get into the committees here in a minute, but in April, the goal is we have draft procedures updated. So again, we're getting into exactly how we're getting there, but in April, that gives us a chance to give it a final review, because all the different committees are going to be doing all the different work. That gives us April and May to put final little changes, adjustments, tweaks, you know, dot the i's, all that kind of stuff. So that it gives us April and May, because in June, I owe the boss a stack of procedures. Please sign here. All right, so that's the goal of June. Procedures, I'll talk a little bit about policy and procedure, of course. Let's see that. And it'll be all right here, I think. Go check it out, this part.
No, I know.
So, yeah. So, procedures might impact, what does that mean at a policy level? So that gives chief a month to go from June to July. Because in July, Chief Van Camp has to go to his bosses at the commissioner meeting and say, here's the impacted policies that we need commissioner level signatures on. So that'll be in July. And then what that is, so after we get all of our procedures updated, we'll need some time, because each one of these procedures we're doing, what does that mean logistically? Do we need more supplies? Do we need more things? Do we got to re-outfit the compartments? Training, what does that mean for everybody to get communicated out on? What's the training that we need to implement? So that in November of this year, all of our new procedures up, running, good. We know what they are, we're trained on them, we have the equipment. So that in November, we might be able to get this done earlier. The deadline is November. We now have updated procedures that we're working off. That's the goal.
Question.
Yeah.
So the November timeline is to have procedures in place, or to have procedures that you've started to implement?
So the procedures get signed off by chief in June, and that gives us a couple months to figure out what all is the impact. So if the procedures are here in June, we're up and running on them. But in November, the idea is that we figured out all the bells and whistles and little adjustments and what was the trainings that we didn't know.
Like there's training, programming, if you gotta buy equipment.
Yeah.
Those things.
Right. So chief may have to post sign like date for November, but the idea is that we have them by June. But November is the day that we're supposed to have all of our little, what did the impacts mean for us?
Okay, I'll ask the question again. Does it mean that you're going to have them implemented by November? Or does it mean you'll have policies and procedures written and drafted and finalized by November?
Right. So June, they're written, drafted,
understand.
finalized. November, implemented, and we figured all that other
Okay,
stuff out.
I didn't hear that word before. Thank you.
Okay, so on our overall plan, probably no surprise, but we're gonna be doing BLS, we're gonna continue fire suppression. We have waterfronts, we need marine type events to deal with, technical rescue, mobilization, hazardous materials. I'm gonna go more specific in each one of these. And one of the differences you'll see is we're mentioning transport. What does that mean for transport? I know you've all had to do them. We've had plenty of times where there's no private ambulance. But we have never had a procedure that says, well, how, when, if, what, who, what are all the details to make the transport work when we have to do that? So I'll get more specific in on each one of these, but that's the overall that we're trying to make work. So for goal 1, primary objective, this has to work for you as the responders. This is where a lot of times you're asking for guidance from Chief Van Camp, for myself, but what's more important is that these detailed things work for you, which is another reason why we want to make sure you have your fingerprints on them. You're the ones that are out on the field. You're the ones running the calls. You're the ones that need to know and make sure these are going to work for you. So keep that in mind through this whole process. We don't want to get to the point where we did all this work and then realize, I kind of knew this one would work because of XYZ. So we're looking for that feedback so we can catch these things, so we can make it right. So as we go through, we're gonna talk about the updates on this. Transparent, we're trying really hard to, at, district level, the whole line, everything, be transparent with everybody. And sometimes I'll just give encouragement to everybody to keep in mind what transparent is. And a lot of the times there's three different categories of what could happen. If somebody isn't getting their information, is there a transparent issue? And that generally means I secretly have a plan, and I'm not telling you, or we're not communicating what that is, or there's something, an agenda that we're not talking about. That's transparency. More often than not, we have communication issues, which every organization I've ever been a part of, and most of the ones I've ever heard of, have communication issues. So that's something we're really working hard on. And that's the stuff where we're just talking about where we are. We're talking about what we know. We're sharing the information we have. And then there's the third bucket, which is, why don't we know it? It's because we don't know it yet. It isn't that Chief and I secretly have the answers of exactly how mobilization should detail out. That's the work we're doing. It's the building, the how, the what, and building the procedures. So one of those three reasons are, why we may not be getting information. So we're working really hard. Well, we're committed to being transparent, but we're working really hard to communicate. This meeting is an example of why we're recording it for anybody to watch. To have that, but we need the communication. So we're gonna be honest and direct. So when you're a part of helping out with this process, if there's a specific reason, just tell it so everybody knows where we're coming from. So what is it we want to influence, change, adjust, and why? Be direct. We don't need to beat around the bush. We want to actually just, here's why. So we all just really want to communicate and make that, we don't need to hear that you bit your tongue. We want people to talk about it. And open-minded. Not uncommon to already kind of have a preconceived idea of what you think the district needs to do, but we need to be open-minded as to, hey, maybe there's a different side that I didn't know about. So that's part of what I'm asking everybody to keep in mind as we go. Communicate up and down your chain. Communication isn't just the fire chief or the assistant chief or the board, always giving updates to everybody. We had our officer meeting a couple weeks ago, and my expectation of all officers is that we have a mastery level of where we are on all these different steps. So we want to make sure that all of our members can at least go there. They're welcome to ask anybody they want, but we need all officers to make sure that they're up on it so they can communicate to their firefighters and they can get the input from the firefighters, people on the committees that we'll talk about, and keep the communication solid. So we're really, really trying to work hard and improve. Just talk a little bit about policy, procedure, and guideline. Different terms, sometimes they get mingled back and forth. A policy is something that needs to go to the board. The fire commissioner signed. A policy level says, yes, we accept the fact that we will do mutual aid. We have written down the fact that if we have a fire, we appreciate that neighboring departments come and send fire engines to help us on our fire. And we accept the fact that we might have to use our taxpayer dollars funded to go out of our own district because that's what we do. So on a policy level, it says, yeah, we can and we will do mutual aid. A procedure is something the fire chief signs, and that details out, okay, and then what exactly does that mean? When do we go? What types of things do we do? How do we work out there? And then that gives the more specifics, and that gets approved at a fire chief level. So policy says, okay, yes, we as a district agree that we do this thing. A procedure gets into the specifics, and a guideline is more specifics that support a procedure. Any questions on that? Sometimes I think there's some confusion on policy, procedure, guideline. Okay, so all the work that we're going to be doing, I'm going to talk about, is focusing on our procedures and our guidelines. After we get all that, what we feel like we need to do, Chief Van Camp will have a pretty good summary of, well, what are all the impacts, so he can write in policy level impacts so that the board can. All right, so I wanted to thank many of you out there. We're a part of this, but I want to thank everybody that did our 2024 program workshops. Put a lot of work. We broke into different groups that did research on mobilization, EMS transport, SORT, water rescue, tech rescue, and drones. These were all ideas that had come up from the floor, things we should consider, things we should look at, challenges we have. And they each did a great job on presentations, and it was able to do a lot of that compilation, the research, the data, and what are the recommendations of that. But not to confuse this with what the decision-making process was. Now we're in on the decision-making, but that works. So the program workshops added a lot of that, the research and the value and the gain of going through and back and forth in each one of these. And in short, we decided that SORT was probably not something that makes sense for us to be a part of the SORT team. There's county SORT. special operations rescue teams. And we decided that probably wasn't best for us. We decided, okay, we're not worried about that. Drones, while they may be a part of the future, we said, hey, we're probably not really in a place to start up on a drone program. So we went out away from that. Mobilization, we now have a brush truck. We have a handful of folks that are red carded. So we said, okay, well, what would that mean? And what would a procedure level look like for us to get engaged in doing a mobilization? EMS transport. EMS transport's a big one because, like mentioned, we often have a private ambulance that's not available or 40-minute wait before they will come. And you all have been in positions where you say, well, I'm just gonna have to make a decision about, let's get aid unit 83 and ask them to come on out. But we don't have any procedures that say when, if, who, which station, does the other crew go, or we don't have the capability of doing it. We're not doing it today. That's all stuff we don't have a procedure on. So that's gonna be a big one on how that works. I'll get more specific in on some of the specifications on that. Water rescue, the committee had put together concepts, everything from should we have a fireboat, should we get jet skis, should we have special rescue swimmer teams? And I'll talk more of the details of where we landed in on that. Tech rescue, the rope rescue stuff, we don't have any procedures on it, but a lot of our folks have already been through the training. We have some of the equipment, might need to get some more equipment in on that, but each one of these are gonna be procedures that we'll get working on. So just to do kind of an org chart, it would take me literally 2 years if I personally had to take each one of these things, gather up everybody, work on one procedure, get the information from everybody, build it, try to get through that, then go to the next one. So we're dividing and conquering this. So what we're doing is all the drafts will funnel up to me. Once we can get some buy-off and have consensus on all the draft procedures, that will be in June when I get to bring them to Chief Van Camp to say, here's our final recommendations. And then the specifics on the dates we can still get back on. So what we're looking at is I'm going to work with battalion chiefs and all the district officers on all the drafts. All the members will have a chance to review them all, but each one of these different committees will focus in on their specialty area. And we've assigned Chief McBride on the mobilization chair. We have Chief Hall for EMS transport chair for the procedure committee. Chief Klaus has tech rescue and shore-based water rescue. And then we have all the existing procedures, and I'll take care of making groups and committees for each one of the updated ones. So all these can happen at the same time rather than, so that was one of the differences we saw in the previous slides. We talked about prioritizing procedures, policy procedure guidelines on what they are. We've got the big handful of the ones that are most impacted to us, but rather than just going one by one on them, we're all just gonna start working on them. Okay, so the chair of each committee will, as of the end of today, effective tomorrow, everybody's encouraged to reach out to the chair directly, and the chair will have the specific plan of here's how we're gonna meet. We're gonna meet in person, we're gonna do Zoom combinations, we're gonna email drafts back and forth, however they do that, completely up to the chair of each committee. So each member, all namely responders, since we're talking about the operational policy procedure guidelines, is welcome and encouraged to join more than one, all, hopefully at least one. I do expect all officers attend at least one, preferably 2 or more committees to help out with. But we want all members to know that you're welcome to reach out to the chair of any one of these to join, and then start on that work. That gives us for the rest of February, March, April to get these things working, draft and going, so that in April we have a rough cut of where we think we are, so that everybody can review them all. They'll come back up and laterally share them all, so each committee chair can say, hey, membership, we have a draft version on what we're doing for tech rescue. Looking for feedback. Everybody has a chance to feedback on every single one of them. Revamp as needed, gives us April, May to put a final, can we accept this? Do these all make sense? Did everybody buy off on this, or do we at least have consensus? I know full well, not everybody's gonna agree on all these, so we have to accept that. But everybody gets a chance to argue, push their case, make their points, and influence them. Any questions on the org chart? Okay, more specific, EMS transport procedure. Chief Hall is gonna head this one up for us. Like I said, everybody's welcome to start emailing him or see him and start his list. who wants to be on his committee, and he'll start detailing out, here's the plan, here's how we're meeting, here's the draft, here's the updates. I'm gonna build off all the work that the workshops did in 2024. They've already done a lot of research and found out some of the trade-offs and a lot of that. Use that as information that'll help them. Another requirement that I'm asking Chief Hall to make sure everybody does is watch on May 19th. There's a recording here at the board meeting. Chief Van Camp put together a transport presentation to the board and a recommendation. And you can skip up to 1 hour and 48 minutes if you want to get to that point. And that's where the transport's up. So anybody on that committee, I urge to watch that video so you kind of see the research chief has included as well. So some of the parameters on there is we are not planning on billing, and this is the hot one. I know a lot of people think we need to be doing billing, but that's one of the sandbox things now. So Chief Hall knows that if his committee comes back with a differing recommendation, Chief Van Camp and I are open to listening to any counterpoints, debate, but for now, just keep us in a sandbox of what we're looking at doing. We're not planning on doing a billing, and we don't want to have to inherit new HIPAA regulations. When you get in on transports, there's all sorts of new HIPAA and administrative requirements. So that's the general guidelines for this committee. And of course, the who, what, when, where, what, how does all that work? What do we recommend for when we need to do transports? How will that look? And then Paul would manage the timelines and the benchmarks in order to be ready by April. Okay, EMS transport. So just to be clear, we're not planning on a transport program, meaning we're not planning on having we're starting up a new thing. So there's a lot of the rumors are out there. So I want everybody to be very clear. We're not trying to say we're now starting up a whole transport program. We're just writing a procedure that says when we identify the need and the community member needs a transport, we have a way to say, when can we help and how will that look? Okay. Mobilization procedure. Chief McBride's heading this one up for us. He's a same drill. Go to him if you want to be a part of the mobilization committee. He'll head that up. And then, of course, he'll build off the work that the mobilization team has already been a part of. The workshop has already been a part of, and the information they found. Some of the parameters and assumptions, we have to confirm the staffing level capability is included in there. Meaning if we're shy and somebody has a hurt part and they're out on light duty and the shifts are all really hurting, we don't have the staffing and we're really hurt, has to be included in the procedure that this is probably going to be a no-go. But the procedure has to spell out some of these specifications. Also, have to have a chief authorization. We're not going to set up a process saying, oh, MOB came out, here we go. And the chief's going, oh, no, I didn't know that we did. So we have to include the fact there has to be a chief authorization for it. Of course, the who, what, when, where, what, how. He's going to manage the timelines and benchmarks for all that. Derek, I forgot to give you a chance. Do you have any comments on the previous one or for your committee?
No. I'm so excited.
Okay.
So,
Brent, any comments or anything on mobilization? No. Okay. Tech rescue. A lot of our folks have already been through a lot of that initial training. There would be ongoing training required for it. But what is the specifications on how that? So Chief Klaus is heading that up. He's again, same drill. Anybody wants to be a part of that team, join his committee. For the workshop work they've already done. Some of the specifications or parameters and assumptions we're making is that all platoons shall have the same capabilities. So what we don't want is this person and this person are off on Kelly Day and vacation this day, and they're our only tech rescue level, so we can't do a thing. We have to have the capability on all platoons, and it can't be dependent that one person's out and therefore we can't do it. So we have to have the training for all operation. We're keeping it at an operational level, so we're not going to be doing the technician level. So the procedure would outline, hey, how would that support start happening? How would the buildup happen? When do we call for a truck company? And all that. That's one of the guidelines we're looking for. And of course, address the initial and the ongoing training needs, logistics, include the mutual aid involvement and impacts. What does that mean? Because obviously if we're upgrading, so to speak, a truck or a ladder or whatever we need, or sort team, that those things are clarified out there. The who, what, when, where, why all needs to be in there. Chief Klaus, anything additional on this committee?
sir.
Shore-based water rescue. So Chief Klaus again, same thing, review all the information that we've already had. He's gonna see him for the committees on there. One of the big assumptions to go through is we're not planning on getting a fireboat, jet skis, or doing a special swimmer, a special rescue swimmer team. I know that was a disappointment because many of the members of the workshops were recommending that, but I'm just here to tell you what we already said, no, sorry, we're not looking at doing. So that's one of the parameters on that. But we're gonna stay water, but we still have events where we happen to stay shore based. But right now, it's kind of a handshake agreement between us and Lacey or us and, oh yeah, we'll call you if we need it. But there's no procedure that says, well, how exactly do I follow this? So it's kind of left to that duty officer, that shift, that crew to figure out how are we gonna do this? What are we supposed to do? We call Lacey on this time? We need to document and spell that out a little bit better, or spell it out. And of course, all the details in on that. Anything for extra on shore base I'm missing?
Again, no.
All right. And then the existing procedure updates. I got a list of them. They're on the summary sheets. Yes, there are other things that we know we're outdated on, but this is the priority list that we're tackling for 2025 is the ones that are listed out on the draft proposal. And then kind of the same drill. Anybody that wants to be a part of these, I will be sending these out. So you'll see multiples of them for me, starting on a new topic, a new procedure, starting on committees. And a lot of them will be draft because they're already a procedure on it, but we'll have a lot of red line stuff to change how we do. And then probably no surprise to anybody, the number one was our standard response guidelines. There's a lot of details in on there about when we have a fire, what do we go out, what are we doing, what are we not doing, who's going, what are the first size ups, all that kind of stuff is way outdated. So that's the first one I'll be tackling. And again, I'll be putting out looking for people to join my committee for that. Okay, so goals for the steps we need to do. We've already been communicating with members. I've been sending emails out. We're doing this meeting. I have another one tonight at 7:30 for anybody who wants to come in person. We're recording this right now, so anybody who couldn't make it to a meeting is encouraged to watch this video now. Do the best we can to communicate to all the officers so that everybody knows, and we just want to start communicating. Where are we on each of these things? That's what we're really trying to improve is the communications. Clear up whatever the rumors are, the misunderstandings, and also get the feedback of what people disagree with, so we can start considering all this. I already mentioned the committee chairs are going to establish and manage as they deem proper. All officers, I'm going to require join at least one committee, but highly encouraged and requested that you maybe do a couple of them. Also, officers, please make sure that you are talking to your folks about it. Anybody that may not have watched the video or read the emails, if you see anybody talking about or asking about, encourage people to join the committee.
Hey, Chief, I do have one thing.
Yeah.
So, for the commissioners, just for their understanding, a lot of the ones that Chief LeMay has taken on are existing procedures. And one of the big things we're trying to do is make sure that we align with other mutual aid, agencies that we respond with, so that we're able to work and interoperability is improved, if not, way better. So that's primarily the ones that we're assigned are kind of our own, what South Bay Fire is now saying we're willing to do. And so we have our limitations, which make it less likely for us to mirror what you'll see from Lacey Olympia. But we'll try to coordinate as we're developing ours. We'll coordinate, make sure that there's good overlap. But primarily I've got one of his, which is hazmat, for example. How we operate needs to be the same as how Olympia and Lacey operate, because obviously they're on our mutual aid calls and we're on theirs. So that's all I got.
Yeah.
Just so you kind of see it and understand why goal one is so important.
Good point. Yeah, mutual aid, all that critical. And then they will touch a lot of the other new committees as well too. But yeah, definitely some of the existing ones are doing a lot of work. Okay, so big question I get as well. We talked about, and this is where I wanted to clarify and communicate. The intent of the workshops we did in 2024 was to get the research, to start considering, to find out what are the deal breakers at the fire chief level, what are the parameters we are or are not willing to do. That was the information stage. But people ask, well, we keep talking about doing new things, but we don't actually do new things. So I've been getting a lot of the questions, well, how do we know what are we actually doing? Well, the ground level is once the chief signs a procedure and there's a date that says it becomes effective this date, it's a procedure. That's the finish line. Everything else we're doing is talk, ideas, debate, discussion, what works, what may not work, and we're still kicking around what is appropriate for South Bay Fire. So people ask, well, when does it actually get implemented? Well, that's depending on how the procedures, what they implement. Once the chief signs procedures and there's a date on there, whatever the date says, okay, that's the date we're doing it. So maybe that clarifies a little bit more of the question you asked earlier.
It does, and so my interest there was to say, implementation means we've already ordered the special widget
Right.
that we need, and it's already on the trucks. Everybody's been trained on that widget, and in November, we all can use the widget.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep. Thank you. So ground level is actually implemented. Okay, well, now we might actually have a mobilization. We have clarified on the transport and all these details. That's why it's so important. The procedures now we build actually work for you in the field. Okay, so that's goal one. Everybody should have a version of the draft proposal. Again, if you don't have anything right now, that's fine, but do know that I'm asking for any input, feedback by tomorrow. So I can implement it tomorrow afternoon to shoot to chief Friday morning. If anybody has anything now, I'm happy to take in suggestions or ideas, or if there's any questions about what we're doing for goal one, that I may not have clarified properly, let me know.
I'd like to paraphrase what I heard from Eric Gettle at an officer meeting was, and correct me if I mistakenly say what I thought I heard, but how, I think his question was moving forward. Obviously, we're tackling a lot of these now because they're out of date, like as he said, some of them are 20 years out of date. Are we going to develop a process, a procedure for reviewing our procedures, in a specific time frame, whether that's 5 years, every 3 years? But as this agency continues to change, that's one of the things that I think will be really beneficial. So yes, this is a lot of stuff to address at one time, but then what are we gonna do moving forward? Because there's still other things that we haven't addressed
Yeah,
that need to be also touched.
well, and I would suggest that, in the vein of what's a policy and what's a procedure, policy that could be drafted that supports that would be, the board would say, South Bay Fire, as an organization, you're gonna review all your procedures every 5 years or every 3 years.
Correct.
Something like that. So,
I think there's value to
Yeah.
that, and then what that group looks like, is there a group that is formed that focuses solely on that review and kind of identifies it? That's just moving forward, that would be a
Yeah.
suggestion, because yes, this is a lot to bite off at one time, and it's not gonna be a complete bite. And I feel like we could do ourselves a real service to continue to review.
definitely. Yeah, I'm all for putting a timeline on mandatorily reviewing it, but also I think what I heard from Garrett, Gettle's recommendation was there's a good chance we make a procedure and, oh shoot, we didn't realize that this doesn't work right until we actually start doing it. So by all means, we can modify it. It's just a matter of striking out, making the change, make the recommendation, say, oh, we didn't get it right the first time. All we have to do is go back to Chief Ancamp, explain why, and he's sign it. Now we have an updated one.
Are you surveyed to your policies and procedures?
Are we what?
Surveyed by an outside agency?
Yeah, when we have WSRB come in, they look at our
How
policy and
often do you
procedure.
come in?
5 years.
5 years?
We're up this year, so I will be a little bit shy of giving them our updates. Okay. Anything for goal one? Okay. All right, so goal two, this is our staffing requirements. So been a lot of history on this. We talked about trying to ramp up, get more staffing. We want to staff 2 stations 24/7. This is one of the main principles of what we're looking at being able to do. And how do we ramp up and do that? So in here, it lines out that by year 2028, we'll have gone from 18 career on the ship responders to 20. So ramping those in year by year, help us out. So going through the staffing levels, we've already done this. And of course, in the shared drive, we still have the volunteer update. There's a proposal on how we're changing our volunteer program. Chiefs accepted that, changed our volunteer program. And as far as career staffing, that's how we got to where we're looking at now, hiring on more to bolster up the platoons. So that was done in January, good there. Financial limits, this was the big one. And everybody remembers we had Prop 1. Prop 1 had passed, we have a new funding source, so Chief has already figured out and done a budget to say, yes, now we have money to hire more people, so that part's done. And this says the implementation and the promotional activities. That's the work that we're looking at now. Actually, how are we planning on, and I'm gonna get more specific in on that. But by December of this year is the deadline that we're expected to have our new staff on board. We're trying to make that work quicker. We got a lot of reasons why some people are out, some people are having babies and they're gonna be out for a bit. So we're trying to make that happen quicker, but just by policy, the deadline is December. So here, a little bit of a change, I was gonna say, 2024, as we know, we have 3 firefighters, 2 lieutenants on each platoon. That's where we have been. So originally, and what we had talked about when we were working through, the goal for 2025 is to accept and build in the fact that we'd have 3 new lieutenants, 3 new firefighters. The battalion chiefs and a lot of the officers and members have helped convince Chief and I that gives us some challenge, because by the time we promote, move them over and make them lieutenants, we're now shy on firefighters. So then we would have to go back, we'd have the vacancies, we'd have to start filling, but we would be very shy staffed on firefighters and very heavy on lieutenants. So instead, what we've modified our plan to, per the updated version that we have, is now we're changing it for 2025. We're gonna keep the 6 lieutenants total that we have. We ramp up to 15 firefighters instead of 12. So instead of 3 new lieutenants and 3 new firefighters, we're looking at bringing in 6 firefighters. So with option 2 is the way we're looking at now. And again, I'm still looking for if anybody has feedback on it, but I feel like this is kind of where we are. And we're planning, so we still have the vacancies on the 3 per our original plan. But we focus in on bringing in 6 new firefighters this year, so in 2025, and we leave it at 6 lieutenants. So 15 firefighters, 6 lieutenants, we keep that way for 2025. Still use the funding, but 6 firefighters instead. So that's the change of what we were originally talking about. So that builds us up. Now that's actually 3 firefighters more than the original plan, but what that would do, we add them in, we now have a bigger pool of firefighters, so that in 26, we have the 15 firefighters, we move to 9 lieutenants. So if we're at the 9 lieutenants, we are putting out announcement that we're accepting lateral people who want to apply and go through our testing process per our collective bargaining agreement. It says external, what did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, external, yeah. He keeps catching me on the terminology. Thank you. Good catch. External applicants, different than a lateral. External applicants are welcome to apply to go through our testing process, which we're doing in May, our promotional process. So we're making an assumption that we have internal members, firefighters that are gonna wanna go through our promotional testing assessment center. And we also may well have some applicants, external applicants that would apply here. So with that, by adding there, this may well end up, maybe all 3 are internal. Maybe 2 are internal and 1's an external, but that's gonna change how the numbers play out. But we're still looking at having for 26 January, the 3 new lieutenants. So if they promote over there, we have to add in the 3 more firefighters, assuming it was a 3 transfer, it might be 4, depending on how those numbers pan out. Adding in the 3 more to backfill. So in 26, the idea is that the 3 new firefighters, that this would be the entry level. So we have 6 external or 6 lateral that we're looking at for the firefighters. And then in September of this year, we're gonna be pulling our applicant list for the entry level people, entry level firefighters, process them, do our process to go through, and those will be our entry. So we're not requiring firefighter or EMT. They go on, they do their written test to get on the list. We start in the interview process, we start in our selection process, we move forward. And then the end of 2025, we should have a list of new entry level firefighters who we're planning on bringing in. So they should be able to start in January of 26. That puts us back to the 15 firefighters.
Starts different than being on the floor. The start, they go off to the academy, they'll be on the floor in June-ish.
Good point. Yep, to clarify what Chief Paul said, they're entry level. So what we're planning on doing is sending those 3 or however many. They'll go off to fire academy. We won't see them right away. They'll be off to fire academy. Been pretty happy with the South Sound Regional Academy, hosted over at Lacey. Send them that, we won't see them until June. But they'll be members. So that's 26, puts us to 15 firefighters, not lieutenants.
And just so the commissioners understand too, this new one they'll be going through the South Sound Fire Academy, but they'll be doing that with the EMT element as well. So they start in January. That's new for us. We've always, like Romaldo is going to go through as a firefighter. So that's an additional time.
So, and then in 27, so far we have 9 new positions in. 27, we have 1 more. Firefighter would add in, that's how we get to 28, from 18 to 28. And then that's how we will meet our deadline. By 2028, we will have had the 10 new career positions. Just a quick little visual. If anything's off, know that I think I followed it pretty well, but this is the official accounts, not LeMay's PowerPoint. So what's in here is the details of how that timeline works, and it specifies out when we're doing the assessment center, when we're interviewing the new firefighters, when we're bringing on the laterals, all that. Okay. Any questions on the moving around? A lot of pieces. I was hoping a visual aid would be helpful. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by watching, and some people learn by talking. So I'm trying to show all the different ways so we can understand where we are. Okay, so a lot of what we've been through, I think is addressed in here, but the entry level versus a lateral versus a combo versus an external versus and what are the prerequisites? I think we lined out a lot of where that is already. It's identified in the plan. I believe we figured that out. What's our process? Still some uncertainty. We've been growing. We're relatively green as far as hiring career staff, in departments. So we haven't had a real consistent process in a long time. In fact, most of you career members started in, might have had a different process than the next person. We've changed it, we've modified it, we've tried to improve it. Maybe sometimes we had a trade-off of maybe it wasn't an improvement, but part of what we need to include, and that's part of in the plan as well, is having an identified, what does it mean to be a probationary firefighter? And to spell out what is their things to do? What is their supervisor expected to do? How do we make them successful? What is everybody doing to support that? And build all that in. So getting it more consistent and having a procedure that would show out all those details, because before we were kind of just making decisions and we sort of arbitrarily changed the thing. And now this guy has a different thing they're going through the department. We have the timelines, I think it's already identified in the plan. There's a lot of the details. Even the plan doesn't specify every single little piece, but the idea is that this gives us a benchmark that we're agreeing on. And Chief Ancamp has been very clear that we're not making any actions. We're not making any announcements. We're not making any new hires. We're not changing any policies, procedures until we document out a plan. So we're not, again, going back to that trap we've had in the past where we're sort of just, oh, let's do it this way this time. Let's try it this way. He's been very adamant. That's been one of my missions, is to make sure I have a plan, and of course, getting everybody involved in that plan. Once he signs, approves, and says, yep, this is the thing on Friday, Monday, we can start. I'm hoping to get the announcements out Monday, in fact. Okay, so that's the overview. That's the overview on goal 2. And then so I wanted to take some time to see if anybody questions on any of the goal 2 stuff, anything unclear. Any suggestions that we should consider that we're not considering or should be different? Are we on the wrong page? Anything?
I'd like to thank everybody's participated in this thing. This has been a huge lift.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot of hard work. Yourself, like this.
Yeah, everybody's been great. So I appreciate all the work everybody's done to help build this so far. But let everybody know. Anybody that hadn't seen this yet or hadn't heard, looking for final thoughts by tomorrow. I feel like we're 99% there. I had a couple suggestions that I'll modify, nothing too dramatic, but just kind of clarifying a few pieces, and I'll make that update on the final version. before I give it to Chief Friday morning. Okay. Well. Happy to stick around, but as far as boring people watching in Zoom land. Unless there's anything else, I'm gonna call it done. Good. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. And do get involved. Especially when these, we've got a lot of work in these procedure committees, so looking forward to getting everybody involved. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have questions for you.
Right.
Yes,
I have questions for you
Yeah.
about policies. So,
I'm gonna stop recording.
yeah, go ahead. Do you guys do?